Okay, Billy was referred to the Mulberry Bush when he was 8 years old in 2014. When he was very little, had been quite badly sexually and physically abused by his family and by friends of his family, and he was taken into care. I visited him at his foster parents' home in South London, which was quite a nice house, a big house. It was a 3-storey Victorian house. And when I knocked on the door, Billy answered with his foster dad. And what struck me immediately was all the downstairs doors had big holes in them. I was invited in, and Billy immediately climbed on the outside of the banisters all the way to the top. I was shown into the kitchen where there was a settee and asked if I wanted a cup of tea. And Billy arrived flying through the door, landing on the settee next to me. And he then leapt onto the side in the kitchen and scampered all the way down the side. He was completely out of control. One thing that was really interesting was that I was made a cup of tea, and Billy was made a cup of tea as well, and neither of us spilt a drop the whole time I was there, despite him leaping all over the place. Billy's foster family were just really struggling to look after him because of his violence and shockingly abusive language. And at school he'd been excluded from 3 schools, and his most recent school had sent him home because he had recently stabbed his teacher in the arm with a pencil. His behaviour in school was quite outrageous. He was really unable to be alongside the other children and was making very poor progress. Billy settled into the Mulberry Bush quite well and was generally quite settled, although he found it really hard to engage in class and get on with learning. What we discovered quite quickly was that his mind was just really full of preoccupations with his abuse in his earlier years of life, and so we quite quickly referred him to our therapy team for individual psychotherapy. He used this well. And started to talk about some of those things that had happened to him in his early life. And this led to him being able to learn in the class quite well, and he made good progress academically, particularly in maths, English and writing. What Billy found most difficult was bedtime and going to sleep. These were the times when he really was haunted by his memories of what had happened to him when he was little. And for hours at night time he used to scream and shout, kick, attack staff until he was absolutely exhausted. Staff found this really difficult to contend with, and we had to put extra staff on time and again to relieve those that were exhausted by his violent outbursts. This went on for quite some time, and we tried all sorts of strategies to try and help him deal better with his nighttime fears. And the only thing that we found really worked in the end was having some consultancy from a man who was an expert in working with torture victims. And he used to talk to us about torture victims becoming addicted to the feelings of terror during torture. And this really helped us understand what had happened to Billy, and perhaps the thought that he was addicted to the feelings that he used to get at bedtime when he was remembering his fears and attacking staff. And so in fact what we did in the end was that we decided he wouldn't have a bedtime, and we used to put videos on for him in a different part of the house, give him a duvet and a pillow, and he just used to fall asleep when he was exhausted. And this, we thought, probably avoided feeding his addiction to that feeling of terror. Billy continued to do well, and really what was so fantastic towards the end of his time at the Mulberry Bush was that he wanted to be on the school council, and in fact was sort of nominated by his peers to become chair of the school council. One of my jobs is to interview those people that are put forward to be chair, and the interview is quite a formal occasion where I ask questions about what they understand about themselves, the sort of progress they've made while they've been at the Mulberry Bush, and what help and support they think they might need to be a really good chair of the school council. Billy's interview was absolutely fantastic, and what he really showed was his ability to be able to think about himself, the troubles that he'd had, the progress that he'd made, and how he might be able to use some of that learning to support other members of the school council and people in the school to really make progress themselves. Billy became a fantastic chair of the school council and left the school after 3 years to go to a school much closer to his foster family and live back with the family. So it was a real success story. So Billy left the Mulberry Bush at Easter of this year, and one of the things that we do when anybody leaves the Mulberry Bush, a child or an adult, is that we present them with a blanket, a woolen blanket, and what we say to them is that we hope in future when they wrap themselves up in their blanket they have warm memories of the school, and we really hope Billy does well in his future life and is back in touch with us to let us know how he gets on.